This is the Drop the Clutch podcast, a fan-run podcast full of guests, controversy, and opinions about the sport we love that sometimes drives us insane. Hey everybody, and welcome back to episode 26 of Drop the Clutch. Today, I'm joined by Sam as my regular co-host, Eve as another co-host, and our guest this week, Frankie. Hi, Frankie. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
So I guess we'll jump right in. We usually ask a few questions to the guests first, like how they got into Speedway and stuff like that. So if you want to share your story, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I've been going to Speedway since I was in a pushchair. Really, my dad was a fan of the Wimbledon Dons back in the day. My granddad was involved in the grass track, so it was just natural family progression that I get involved in it.
Well, that's good. That sounds good. You've said to me on Discord that you went to Swindon quite a bit.
Yeah, for the longest time. I was there at the last meeting, in fact, the Premiership Grand Final. It was a good stadium. It needed rebuilding, but heaven knows with Speedway stadiums that's never happening properly without more than one thing going wrong.
Yeah, this is true.
And now it looks like the stadium's more or less rebuilt. The club has pulled out of the stadium. God knows what's going on. Honestly, I have no idea.
Hopefully, it works out. Because we could do with another club coming back. So fingers crossed, it works out.
You've more confidence in that than I have.
What can I say? I like to look at the bright side of life.
Well,
I guess.
Birmingham fans, we kind of have to.
Yeah, she's got a point. So we'll just jump right into it. The Cardiff Grand Prix is coming up, so
Yes. We must
has
talk
anybody
about
got any predictions about how that'll go?
Can you look past Smarswick for winning it? I mean, you think they'd be a surprise? You think, I don't know, Bewley or Lambert could pull something out of the bag? Woofenden first win since 2018, maybe?
That would be good. I have quite an outlandish prediction. I say the same thing every year, and I'm going to keep saying it until it happens.
Go for it. 3
Brits on the podium.
That's what I was going to say.
I'm going to say it every year until it happens.
I'm going to be the realist angle to this, aren't I?
Yeah.
You're lucky if you get 3 Brits in the final.
Yeah.
I just hope Steve Worrell does all right as a wild card as well, because he's been brilliant most of the season. So I hope
Worrell's been at Wolverhampton for a long time now, so I think his experience at Wolverhampton will mean the Cardiff track suits him a bit more compared to if he just stayed at Bellevue. He'd struggle. I think he'd struggle there. It's a tight technical track, fairly flat.
Yeah.
I think he could be a bit of a spoiler. I don't expect him to make the semis, but he could mix it up a bit.
Could be the
definitely,
dark horse and pinch points off of the riders.
Yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts about the 2 reserves at Cardiff as well, Anders Rowe and Jason Edwards?
I think Rowe. To be honest, I think Rowe was a given after SON2. Okay, he dropped off, but I think it was a given he'd get a reserve. Edwards is a difficult one though, because I do beg the question why Bailey wasn't picked.
Yeah.
Well, the press release that they put out was wrong.
I'm not the only person to have asked that question either. British under-21 champion, why not give him a ride? Okay, well, why not give him the chance of a ride? He won't actually get a ride, but
yeah. Well, the statement that they put out and Neil Vatcher's comments are completely wrong.
I haven't seen that statement.
But I think Vatcher said that about Connor turning down SON2 and the spot at the top British final and everything. The story, because I saw him Friday while I was up at Redcar, and the story behind that is that Neil Vatcher gave him the chance to be the reserve, so he might not even get a ride at SON2, despite him being the under-21 champion. And then with the British final, he got the phone call at 9 p.m. the night before.
Right.
when it was his birthday the day before, so he was out
He was
celebrating his birthday.
a bit drunk, maybe.
Yeah, but I think Neil Vatcher doesn't like him much, and I don't know why, because Conor Bailey's a really good kid and he's a good rider as well.
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean, for the British final, I can understand the last minute phone call because like 4 riders dropped out, like the day before. So that much I can understand. But I think the fact he was overlooked the first time as track reserve says a lot for the in the British final says a lot, and again at Cardiff.
Yeah.
So the one thing I question though is, would it have been Neil Vatcher putting forward the reserves for the Cardiff Grand Prix, or would it have been Ollie Allen and Simon Stead? If you're saying Neil Vatcher doesn't like him, then it begs the question, who has influence there?
Yeah, I think it's Vatcher because he's the one who's in charge of the whole youth setup, isn't he?
Yeah, but it would have come from the top, from the BSPA, which Ollie Allen and Simon Stead more involved in the senior level.
Just Nick on the WhatsApp group, but yeah, I suppose so. But it would have been like good for him to at least get the call, because Leon Flint got it last year when he won the under-21 championship, and Tom Brennan also got it when he won the under-21 championship in 2021 last year. So you thought it would have run with the territory, wouldn't you?
Yeah, this conversation reminds me a lot about controversy in years previous about the European champion given a wild card pick into the Grand Prix. It happened with Madsen, but it didn't happen with Milik, and I think that raised a lot of eyebrows. And this conversation reminds me of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot to think about, but
yeah. I think Lambert might have. Oh no, that would have been after they changed the rules on that one. Never mind.
Yeah, Lambert was 2020 when he won it.
Yeah, which meant he would have qualified by right at the time.
He did.
I think the track at Cardiff this year might be a bit more better than last year. Like, obviously I was there last year.
I was hoping we'd get onto the track at some point.
Yeah.
I do question it cut up badly last year. Like the SGP2 meeting the afternoon before took 4 hours to do 20 heats, simply because of so much extensive track grading going. There was a massive rut down turn 2 within 2 heats of the Grand Prix. How much of that though was caused by the heat? It was hot that evening and the day after as well.
Yeah, it was.
Because you think back to Warsaw, very, very similar track. Warsaw last year is very similar track. It didn't cut up nearly as badly. So how much of Cardiff last year was the heat in the stadium? It was forecast to be cooler this year, so I'd imagine we'll find out this year how much of last year's was the heat.
Yeah, because like when you got in last year, it felt like it was even warmer than outside in the stadium because the roof was on as well.
Almost certainly was. I didn't go, but I can imagine it almost certainly was warmer in the stadium than outside.
When we went, we were sweating buckets, literally.
Yeah, I was the same as well. It was awful.
But yeah, like you said, because I suppose it can have the heat can have a big effect. So it probably took all the water out the base of the track and things.
Yeah, but when that happens, also the air in the stadium will become very moist because that water's got nowhere else to go. So you're going to have hot, humid air in the stadium and a track that's just radiating moisture into it. It's not going to end well.
No.
So I think some of it could be teething troubles. That was only the second meeting with a temporary track since 2019 because of COVID. But like I say, Warsaw was largely fine. So I think this year the track at the very least, it won't cut up as badly. I don't expect any more racing than you would expect on a temporary surface, but I think it'll hold shape this time.
Yeah.
I mean, the only rider that rode that track really well last year, as we know, was Dan Bewley. So You know, I mean, he obviously
he just goes straight to the fence, like out to the dirt, chasing the air fence, like avoid all the ruts on the inside. You don't need to worry about any of that.
This is true.
Yeah.
Although I suppose that's the motocross influence, isn't it? Because it's the way he rode in the final at the British final, you know, he just hit the wrist and he was gone.
Yeah.
Well, no, the motocross influence is what someone like Chris Harris would do, is just ride the ruts on the inside and hope the bike doesn't take off.
Yeah.
Well,
that is a Chris Harris thing to do.
Yeah.
He's always done that, though, isn't he?
That's the grass track influence in him. So he rides on the grass a lot. That's what happens. You just ride the ruts.
Those are bumpy because you got like holes and stuff in the grass and
occasional molehill.
Yeah.
Got any predictions? Again, I was thrown into this like 5 minutes ago, so no, not really.
Okay. Have you watched the Grand Prix at all this year?
A little bit.
Just out of the riders we've got, just give us the top 3. You know.
Pick a name, any name, like.
Yeah. Spitball it.
No.
Okay. But
I mean, I'll agree with Ruth. I would like to see a Brit win, or you know, place somewhere.
hopefully it's based the Brits on now that they're all riding in this country, so I suppose they'll have more backing from the British fans as well, won't they?
I think you say that in years previous, like a lot of people have said, with the British riders not riding in the UK, why bother supporting them? It's a bad argument, but it's been made. I remember seeing it in the aftermath of the SON win in Manchester a couple of years back. Same argument. None of them ride in Britain, so why should I care? No, that's not how it works.
No, that's not how it works. They're representing your country. If you want if you want your country to be successful, then you know you've got to go out and support them and show that you support the riders.
Yeah,
exactly.
I didn't really do much prep because I got the notification on my phone at like 7 o'clock going, this is in half an hour, and I was like, oh.
And then I get told that the person who was originally supposed to be doing this with you as well failed. So 5 minutes of thinking, what do I say exactly? How do I not make a fool of myself?
So we're a bit thrown together, but we'll make it work. We always seem to make it work.
Going back to the Grand Prix for next season, I just suddenly, because I was having
the next season, okay.
Oh, we're going into next season already.
Let's go.
Yeah, because I think we were just talking about the top 3 for next year, the top 3 that's already qualified.
Oh, from the Grand Prix Challenge?
Yeah.
We can talk about that.
Yeah, because I was just saying that it's great to see Doyle back and Vasilik and what's that?
Bosniak.
That's it,
Bosniak. Bosniak for me is the only rider confirmed because Vasilik and Doyle both in the top 6 at the moment. I'd imagine they're going to stay there unless they get injured, which will then push it down to, I think, if I remember right, it'd be Lambert and one other rider. I've forgotten the name, Pavlicki, I think.
Piotr Pavlicki.
No, Shemek.
Oh,
Shemek Pavlicki.
Yeah.
Of course there is.
I've
Yeah.
never tried to pronounce any of those.
Here's a controversial opinion, right?
No.
The riders that are already in the Grand Prix shouldn't be allowed to race in the challenge.
Oh. Now, why do you say that? Elaborate.
Because the Grand Prix riders will just re-qualify for next season through the challenge, and we won't get any new faces.
Now, if we're going to get into discussion about qualification for the Grand Prix, I have a lot of thoughts on that. Bring it back to the top 8 qualify. If treat the European Championship like the Speedway, the Grand Prix Challenge, in that if the winner has already qualified by right, then it goes to the next rider in the order, and only give the promoters limit the promoters to 3 picks. And I have to try and work out if my maths adds up. 8, 4, 12. Yeah, that does.
I like that system.
Yeah.
That would be a good idea. That would.
The thing,
Because it would give riders a fair shot.
I don't personally mind Grand Prix riders racing in the Grand Prix Challenge because you have to qualify to get to the Grand Prix Challenge. First, you have to rate. If I remember right, you have to ride in the National Championship for 2 years running and then go through the semi-finals to get to the final. So I don't mind it in that sense. The problem I have is with the organisers picking the same riders over and over again when they didn't make the top 8 or the top 6. And, at that point, just rotating cavalcade are the only new riders are coming up by the Grand Prix Challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would make it more interesting seeing different riders.
Well, I'll tell you 2 riders I'd love to see back in the Grand Prix again that I have missed is Saifudinov and Laguta.
I'm going to avoid talking politics on this.
Oh, controversial. But
controversial time.
I said this last night. I'll just mention it briefly, and then we'll find another topic. But I still say they should be allowed in under a neutral flag because it might make it more interesting.
That's what they did when the Russian Federation was banned for doping, and I don't think it made a massive difference domestically in Russia. They were still treated as Russian riders; they just weren't racing under the flag. I think if you come up with a better idea, then maybe if riding under a Polish license, then maybe. But
thing is, though, there's already enough Poles in the series, isn't there? You'd have to get rid of a couple to bring them 2 back in.
I mean, Janoski can go, right?
Yeah.
Number 3 in the world last year is 12th or 13th in the standings with 1 semi-final position. It's like Kasperzak. He's gone downhill this season quite bad.
Oh, yeah, Kasperzak.
Just the look and your face says it all.
I mean, this season Janoski's been really poor, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's got he averaging like 5 standing points at Grand Prix.
He was a hero at the World Cup for Poland, and that's literally
the one time he's raced properly on the world stage this season. Although that being said, I make the case that if Janoski hadn't passed Lambert and it had finished Lambert directly ahead of Janoski, it would have gone to a runoff. Poland would have won it. But that's a separate issue.
Well, yeah, because they would have put Zmarzlik out, wouldn't they? So.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, gosh, yeah. I mean, Dudek's not been brilliant either, has he?
He's been better than Janoski. That's at the start.
Yeah, he's been all right.
I should really get up my Grand Prix program, shouldn't I? That would be helpful.
So we say letting the Russians back in on a Polish license, but then you'd get Poles going, "Oh, why are they in on a Polish license? Why are they riding as Poles?" I
don't move much in Polish speedway circles, but I don't remember anyone complaining that about Chuganov when he raced under a Polish license.
This is very true.
Yeah.
It may be more of an issue because Laguta and Safutinov are higher profile. Have been, especially the case of Safutinov, been around a lot longer under a Russian license.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell how they react. At the moment, though, their Polish license doesn't allow them to race on the world stage. So that would have to change before they could rejoin the Grand Prix, and they'd probably have to go through the qualifier.
Yeah.
I think the organisers would ruffle more than a few feathers with the FIM if they tried to pick them.
This is very true.
I don't imagine it would be a slog for them to go through the qualifier, but they'd probably have to go through the qualifier nonetheless.
Yeah.
I'm just getting my GP table up. It's taken a while to load.
It's all right.
So it means I finally have something to talk off rather than just riffing from what I remember.
Bit boring.
Well, we have a tendency to just go where the conversation ends up.
Seems to be
Yeah.
how it's going at the moment. Yeah. Oh yeah, Dudek is only one position above Janowski. So yeah, okay, fair enough. The thing is, I with Wozniak getting into the Grand Prix, with the likelihood or the possibility at least of Pavlicki getting in as well, I can't really see at least one of those riders getting a pick for next season.
Mm.
I understand the idea of keeping like the top riders in the Grand Prix, but you can't bulk it out with poles, and that was a strong argument back in 2016 when Kashmajak wasn't given a pick. He'd gone from world number 2 to literally bottom of the table, and he wasn't given a pick.
It's
So
understandable. And if he'd gone from 2nd to 16,
yeah, I mean,
Difference.
Yeah.
granted, we've had a change of organizer in that time, but
yeah, change of organizer that favours Poland.
Oh,
But again,
meet
politics.
the new boss.
Yeah,
let's
he's
not
Same
get
as the old
into
boss.
That's it.
yeah.
Quite literally in the case of some of the SIs. I read through the statutory instruments. They're like, it's literally the same company running half the Grand Prix.
Yeah.
But no,
So,
I think what would be interesting is how the top 6 develops.
yeah,
For next
2
season.
rounds left. Yeah.
3 rounds left, no? Cardiff, Boyens, and Torrent.
Oh yeah.
get
That's
it
it,
right,
yeah.
man.
3 more left.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
3 rounds left.
What? Okay, one thing I've just noticed that I find actually quite interesting: neither the top 2 or the top 3 from last year in the top 6, Madsen and Janowski.
Mm.
I think it's a bit of a ding dong battle at the bottom at the moment between Bewley, Madsen, Lambert for who goes into the top 6. I expect Jack Holder to drop out. No disrespect to him, I don't expect him to be back for Cardiff, and missing 2 Grand Prix will be costly.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because I could easily have seen him being world number 3 this season.
Yeah. Same. Easily.
Which opens the door for Madsen to get in. But Madsen's been up and down this season. He's been more consistent in the later rounds, but he had 2 early Grand Prix that cost him badly in Gorishan and Warsaw. But he could propel his way up the table depending on what happens. I think Bewley, if he gets into top 6, it will be by virtue of Jack Holder dropping out. I think.
Bewley's there already, isn't it? It's Lambert and Woofenden that are just outside.
Yeah, just about. Not by much, I don't think either. Yeah, it's like, well, okay, so it's 5 points between Bewley and Madsen and 2 points between Madsen and Lambert, but 11 points between Lambert and Woofenden. So there's a bit of a gulf there between the 2 Brits. Assuming this document is accurate, it should be. Yeah.
You're the dating.
I write my own programs. It doesn't mean they work. Like,
I blame some.
number of times after a Grand Prix meeting, I've looked at something, gone, hang on, that's not right. I thought, oh god, okay, what's happened there?
What's happened there?
And then I look through the documents and think, oh no, that's supposed to be like that. But okay. So just spent 2 hours chasing a non-existent bug. But anyway, that's programming for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think top 4 are probably set. I don't imagine. I can't see Vashlik or Dora dropping out.
No.
I think Smarslik, he would need an injury to miss out on the world title.
Yeah.
Even then, you know, he could miss. He could comfortably miss one round, have Lindgren win one, and still be in first position right now.
Yeah, it would just cut his gap. It would just cut his lead a bit, wouldn't it?
To 2 from 20.
Yeah.
So I think this title is Smarslik's to lose big time.
Yeah.
Lindgren, I think Lindgren is set for second place at this point. And Vashlik, it's between Vashlik and Doyle for third. Doyle's been very unlucky in the finals, though, of me.
He has.
Thrown out a couple of times where I thought it was completely unfair. But beyond that, I think the competition's for the top 6 at the moment. I think anyone below Woofenden, half a chance, but not really. Frick, he could get in, but it would require it'd be a minor miracle, I think, if he did.
Yeah.
Anyone below Frick, just forget it. Frankly, you've got it's 8 points between him and Dudek. Like, no. Again, you'd need an injury.
Yeah. So, I reckon maybe Madsen or Lambert would sneak in. Possibly.
Yeah, I think Madsen, as I say, expect Jack Holder to drop out probably in the next round if he's not back, which would allow Madsen to come in. And then it's a ding-dong battle between the Brits.
Yeah, it's who wants it more, yeah.
Yeah. I'm perhaps more surprised than I should be, though, that Bewley is above both Lambert and Woofenden. I know the tracks have been very much to his liking, though, this season in the Grand Prix.
How about for Mikkel Mikkelsen and Anders Thompson?
Oh, forget it. They're below Janowski.
That's the worrying thing is Denmark seem to be running out of world-class riders fast.
Yeah, now I know why Nicky Pedersen put himself in the Danish squad for the World Cup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be honest, I thought he'd do that as a joke, but no, that genuinely is. There's like one world-class talent in Denmark at the moment, and that says a lot coming from the nation of Hans Andersen, Niels Christian Iversen, even just in recent seasons. Michael Jensen as well, former Grand Prix and World Cup winner. But now it's just Madsen carrying the can, and even then, world number 2 is 7th in the standings at the moment.
Exactly. It's worrying for Denmark.
Yeah. What I find very odd, though, is a lot of these riders in the bottom half of the table struggling in the Grand Prix. It's a bit like Woofenden, Frick, but doing fine in the leagues.
And it's against the same riders as well, which is
more or less, yeah. I mean, of the top 6 at the moment, 2 race in the British League. 3 if you count Holder, but not at the moment. But yeah, in and out, it's just the same riders. Like Woofenden narrowly missed out on a 7-ride paid maximum at Peterborough yesterday.
He did.
And
16 plus 1.
I think it was. When she hit full ride, it was 8. I think it might have been 19 plus 1.
Good grief!
As I say, he missed out on a 7-ride max. He was on a 6-ride. He was on a 6-ride paid max for the longest time.
Because yesterday, sort of didn't have really anybody to back him up, did he?
No, he didn't. As I say, he gathered 7.5 points. That's the wrong meeting.
Musielak got injured, didn't they?
Yeah, apparently I've just heard that's just bumping and bruising. So I'd imagine he'll be back soon enough. 18 plus 1 for Woofenden last night.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah.
It gives Simon Stead a headache. Do I keep Woofenden or do I bring Jack back in? You know, that's going to give him a bit of a like, oh crap, what do I do?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't really think anyone would have said to drop Musielak with a straight face. I think that was, I remember Nick suggested that in the Discord server, but I don't think that's really wise.
No, because he's from Wolverhampton, and I reckon Sheffield and Wolverhampton will end up against each other in the playoffs.
No, he can't. But he's he's a Polish rider. He's used to the bigger tracks.
Mm.
He spent a season at Wolverhampton. He wasn't necessarily bad, but he spent a long time at Swindon, and Swindon's much closer to Sheffield, Peterborough than it is to Wolverhampton.
Yeah.
In that case, the question mark is how much does Woofenden remember of Monmouth Green from when he was there? He hasn't raced there in 7-8 years.
2016.
2016.
Yeah. So how much does he remember of that track?
Well, I imagine it might have changed a bit since.
I think it has. I think it's become grippier, especially on the inside of turn 2.
Oh, did they show the thing with Doyle last night on Eurosport?
No, I don't think I did.
13. Do you know how he stayed on that bike last
How he
night?
stayed on that bike, I do not know. It was
What
mad.
did it just reared up underneath them, did it?
Coming out of Ben Forger down the home straight, he reared up and he nearly lost.
Yeah, I think I did see that.
The Wolves riders went past him. I was like, how did he stay on?
You get a lot of things like that at Wolverhampton now. Certainly more so than when Woofenden was there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, so Woofenden, he's been out of British Speedway since 2016. He came back to Wolverhampton to help them with the playoffs. Since then, there's no real track on the continent that's similar to Monmouth Green in either shape or technicality.
This is very true.
Wolverhampton's a very unique track. So I think it'll be interesting to see how well he rides it, and then it's the question of do you move now to get rid of Musielak? But as I said, Musielak spent the season at Wolverhampton. He won the league with Wolverhampton.
What year was that?
2016.
Oh, was he in that team? I didn't realise he was in that team.
I think he was. If I remember right, he was dropped for the 2017 season. He didn't get a Premiership position. And then was picked up by Swindon during the World Cup.
Yeah.
And I think in that sense, it'd be very interesting how Woofenden rides that track.
Yeah.
Does he still remember all the technical aspect of that track, or is he blind?
Well, yeah. Because, I was surprised because he hasn't ridden he hadn't ridden at Peterborough for so long, and then last night he goes and does that. So I don't know, maybe it'll take him a race or two to I've got this now.
Yeah.
But it might
It might take him a heat to develop, but you can't compare the showground with Monmouth Green. They're completely different tracks.
Yeah, the showground's quite big and
it's
fast
and open.
There it is, yeah.
It's a bit tighter than some of the Polish tracks, maybe a bit smaller, but it's still fairly similar.
I'm surprised at how quick he's got Sheffield as well, to be fair, because it's been even longer since he rode Sheffield. I think it was something like 2008.
Yeah, but again, it's similar to what he knows on the continent.
True.
Although that being said, I'm actually surprised he signed for Sheffield at all. I always had Woofenden as a loyal rider to his clubs. I thought if he was going to come back to British Speedway, it would only be with Wolverhampton.
Yeah, I heard that a lot of people were saying that, and I was like, well, I don't know. You've been proved wrong, ain't you? But
that's me told.
Because I always like winding the Wolves fans up, but
I mean, who doesn't? Let's be honest, especially Elliot.
They're so easy to wind up, so it just gets funny after all.
I went to Monmouth Green once for a double header back in 2017. It surprised me how into it the Wolverhampton fans get, how passionate they really are, and the Abbey Stadium. I stood on turn 3. I was the furthest away from the main grandstand as you can get, but I didn't hear any shouts or anything like that. And there's way when a rider goes through the tapes running.
Well, I was when I went to the Bellevue meeting there a few weeks back. There was, although then again that speaks for itself, doesn't it? That meeting, so
it's always a big clash. it's not exactly a local derby, but it's a big clash, especially on a bank holiday Monday.
I think it's that rivalry of them constantly wanting to get one over each other.
Yeah, you always want to one up that. This is that one team you always want to one up them. Swindon had that first with Oxford and then with Poole mainly.
Well, yeah, Birmingham used to have that with Cradley when we were in the National League.
Yeah, Craigley's my team as well. So
So I've got rivalry on the top of my screen.
yeah.
I must admit, it was always Birmingham who seemed to come out on top.
Yep.
But, you know, we won't get into that. But, you know.
Oh, yeah.
That's all right.
But, yeah. The conversation's sort of just drifting here, there, and everywhere.
Yes, we've gone from the Grand Prix to the British League, and it's the only connecting point at the moment is Woofington. So,
yeah. Robert Lambert coming back. I don't know. Let's have a conversation about that. Wasn't expecting.
Oh yeah, he's gone back to King's Lynn, hasn't he?
King's Lynn, yeah.
To be honest,
The thing that baffled me was how he replaced Laguta.
Laguta wasn't interested. To be honest, I'm surprised Safutinov was interested as he was, considering how little time he spent in the UK. I think he spent like half a season with Coventry back in 2011.
Yeah,
or something like that. He didn't come back after that. So I think in Laguta's case, he was into it. He wanted the experience of British speedway, but once you get onto the technical tracks, like Wolverhampton or Ipswich, he's not interested because he doesn't know how to ride them. And he doesn't want to know how to ride them because it doesn't help him in Poland and Sweden elsewhere.
Yeah, he was like, "Nah, mate, I'm good. Bye."
Yeah. The thing with Laguta though is it's taken a while for that to develop. He was into it for a while. It's not like what you said with Smarzlik when he came to, I think it was Birmingham, or Latinsky when he joined Swindon in 2015. It's not like 2 meetings and then bye, I've had enough. Or Pedersen when he crashed at Peterborough. But it took a while for him to think nah. And then obviously he gets dropped and replaced by Lambert.
I bet that was a sigh of relief for him. And
yeah, probably. I mean, even just travel costs alone for him going from Poland to the UK, you know, if he's not into it, if he's not interested, then there's no point.
I'm probably like, "Oh yeah, I can earn like 3 times this in Poland and Sweden. Bye."
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. I mean, I was just saying, King's Lynn have been in a right mess this season, haven't they? They've
been in a right mess for years.
As well.
I seem to remember. I can't remember how long ago it was. It was a few years back. I seem to remember one meeting. They got abandoned after like 6 heats when Buster Chapman went on the tannoy and said that he was selling the club or something like that. It was obviously a rage moment for him, but like Kings Lynn they've always pushed for the league. I think they on form in the qualifying they should have won in 2018. But beyond that, they've never really been in the playoffs.
Well, 2018 was the last season Lambert rode, wasn't it, before he took off to Poland and that. So I think in 19 it was trying to replace him, and they've been trying to replace him ever since. Yeah,
I think like it's not for Kings Lynn. Lambert was their number one. It's not like when Woodford left Wolverhampton that you had Lindgren, Torsell could have stepped into it, or when Bewley left Bellevue, you had Frick, you had Worrell, any other number of riders who could have gone into the number one position. That left Lambert leaving Kings Lynn left Kings Lynn without a number one. In truth,
it did.
God knows what they were thinking when they signed Batchelor like 6 years ago. God knows, but
Troy Batchelor.
Was that when they signed? Was that when they signed Chris Holder there as well?
Yeah, and There was one meeting, was something wrong with the track, I've got no idea. Back in like July of 2017, they both withdrew from the meeting under suspicious circumstances. Chris Holder ended up getting banned from British Speedway for it, and
Yeah.
Batchelor was dropped. I think Batchelor presented a medical certificate, but then went on to guest for Swindon the following Monday. But whatever.
Yeah, because that makes sense.
Oh, to be fair, he did end up crashing out of that meeting as well, but it took him until heat 15. So
Yeah.
But it's been going well for Birmingham so far, so flipping it, long may it continue.
yeah,
He's actually second in our averages at the moment, believe it or not.
Let's go.
I think Batchelor's always been a weird one for me. He would, whenever he was at Swindon, he was at Swindon for a long time. He was fine unless you gave him either the captaincy or the number one. At that point, he started to crumble.
Yeah.
But he was captain in 2015. He was number one after Madzinski left as well. He was never. When Ward came into the side, suddenly the gears started turning for him. But then Ward crashed out of the side and he collapsed again. But I think back to 2019, that's probably his peak of league racing. He left Swindon with an 8-point average, barely behind Doyle. But he's never been able to reclaim that in the top division.
No.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he was even touch and go at, was it Ipswich he was at last season?
I think so. Oh no, it might have been Sheffield. I think Sheffield picked up a lot of former Swindon riders in the last couple of years.
He's lacking Ellis. Yeah, he was at Ipswich last year because he rode for Ipswich at Wolverhampton in the pairs.
Yeah, there you go. Then. I can remember. I know Sheffield pinched a lot of Swindon riders. I just couldn't remember which ones.
Well, this season, I know he's injured now, but Sheffield also picked another Swindon rider this year. But is he still out injured? David Balago.
I think he's injured. Yeah.
Yeah.
Balago's also a weird one.
He's never been as good either.
Yeah.
David Balago was always he was an interesting rider. He was never heat leader. He was always string. Although that did not stop Alan Ross to trying him at number 3, with limited results. But it was always fine at like number 4. Beyond that, it's not like Mujilak. He never progressed up the team. He was always sort of like 5-6 point average. But depending on the track, he would struggle to get past the 3rd place, or he would go through the card.
Yeah.
But
those riders is so up and down, and yet there's no in between.
Yeah, but by no means now is he the top French rider. That's easily Dimitri Berger.
Easily, yeah, definitely.
But like the Swindon teams in 2017, 2019, they just got on. I think when riders were looking at the Swindon club, particularly when in 2021 the Polish PZM changed their rules to only allow riders in the extra league to take one of the league, a lot of teams looked at Swindon riders as they just dropped out and thought they're on an 8-point average, they're on a 7-point average, let's get them over, see what they can do. But I think they failed to consider that the team aspect of it as well also helped those riders.
Yeah.
You think Mujilak left Swindon on, I think, a 7-point average. Ellis was climbing up to a 6-point average. Balago was on a 6 as well. That's just the team just gelled as well.
Well, that's a big part of a winning team, isn't it? Having that team spirit.
Yeah. It's also an argument for why Swindon failed in 2016, because there were too many Australians in the side. Whatever.
Which is why I find it weird that since Nick Morris got suspended and then banned from riding, that we at Birmingham, we've been doing better without him.
Nick Morris, he left Swindon in the 2019 season. As far as I'm aware, he's been gradually going downhill ever since, from what I've seen. He transferred to Wolverhampton. I don't know, he got injured there, but he did struggle when he came back. And he hasn't. He was number one. He was an 8-point rider for Swindon in 2017. He's struggled. His average has slipped. He's struggled to reclaim that from there. But that's happened to a lot of former Swindon riders. I think I can't really explain it. I can only say the team gelled. But who really knows?
Only really Doyley that's sort of left Swindon and gone on to still be great.
Yeah, but Doyle's world class.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching or listening to the first part of this episode of the Drop Clutch podcast. Unfortunately, the video was too long, or the audio was too long, for me to get it all in one go, so check out part 2 coming tomorrow. See you later.